Nice to see you. We got folks that are still going to be coming in, pulling in the parking lot right now. But I'm going to go ahead and get us started. Again, thank you for being here. Let me lead us in a word of prayer, and I'll talk a little bit about how this is going to proceed, and we'll get underway. Our Father in heaven, we thank you for where we are as a congregation. We thank you that our passion is the glory of God and to make sure that we are making disciples for His glory, reaching people with the gospel literally across the street and all the way around the world. And Father, we don't want to be presumptuous. We want to follow you, and so we want to be able to make the best use of this time today as we seek to share the process that this building team has been going through. Bless this building effort, Father, that it would be just what you want it to be, whatever that is, for your glory. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. All right, thank you for being here. And so I want to share just very briefly some of what I shared this morning to kind of set the stage for you. And I don't think we can repeat this often enough because we only hear a part of what is actually said. And I can prove that through the exams that my students take. And so more information is better than less information. Repetition can be very helpful. So 1998, this church relocated from the south end of Louisville and bought these 18 acres, and with big dreams and hopes and aspirations to make an impact for the glory of God and for the advancement of His kingdom. Many of those who relocated here were senior adult people, some of whom sold their homes in the south end to move to this area so that they could continue to support and be a part of this church. I came on the scene in 2000 as an interim. I became the lead pastor in 2001, and I think it was in 2003 that we started the process of building our children's area, two-story addition, 24,000 square feet. Since that time, the Lord has continued to bless us, and we find ourselves now at a crucial juncture congregationally. We have, as you've heard me say, somewhere between 92 and 95% of our Sunday morning crowd goes to a Bible fellowship group. We've only got one or two available classrooms that are empty right now, and those groups that we have are getting larger and larger. And those Bible fellowship groups are absolutely essential because that's where people are assimilated into our church. That's where they develop their friendships most quickly. That's the group of people that are going to take care of them if there's sickness. They're going to celebrate them with them when there's joy. And so as those grow, it becomes harder and harder to get to know everybody and develop the kind of relationship. So we need to begin new groups. We need new Bible fellowship groups, and that means we need new Bible fellowship group classrooms. On Wednesday nights, if you count all of the people that are in discipleship, not all of them are here on Wednesday night. The vast majority are. We've got about 60% of our congregation back on Wednesday night. Some of them are listening to Dr. Betts right in here. Some of them are in choir. Some of them are working with youth in small groups. Some are working with children in small groups, and then we have literally every office, every classroom, many hallways with men and women gathered together, intergenerational groups doing discipleship, sharing, praying, growing with one another. And that allows us to build even deeper community because there's the cross-fertilization from Bible fellowship groups and generations, and it causes us to know one another better and love one another more. That's phenomenally wonderful. On Wednesday nights, we've got youth that are meeting, over 100. We've got a lot of children that are meeting, somewhere near 100 when you count preschool all the way up through the fifth grade. And a part of that time, they spend studying the Bible together, studying truth together, and getting to know one another. But a portion of that time should be in building community. And one way you build community with teenagers and with children are games and activities. It's not the major part of what we do on Wednesday night, but it is an important part. And as soon as November hits and it begins to get dark very early and cold outside, November, December, January, February, March, there's about 6 months of the year we can't take them outside to develop that community and camaraderie. We don't have anywhere in our facility that can take place. And so we need a place where the kids can have activities. We need a place where youth can have activities. We need a place where Bible fellowship groups can have luncheons and dinners. And when you've got about 30 people, 40 people, 20 couples, and you add together about 100 kids, there's nowhere in this building that you can do that. And in the winter, there's no park that's big enough. And so they're left without an opportunity to do things together as families, and that's a great detriment to our growth. And so we are thoroughly convinced as the ministerial staff, and that's why we brought it to the church, and so grateful that you voted unanimously for us to form this team of people from our congregation to explore how we could make room for more disciples. And that's what we're going to talk about tonight. We're going to show you a video here in just a moment. Then our chairman of our committee, Andy Vincent, Vice President of Operations at Southern Seminary, is going to speak to us. And then we'll have testimonies from a few of the members about various aspects of the project. I'm not sure when, brother, you'll be explaining the particulars, but we'll be explaining some of the particulars. We'll be taking questions, but the kind of questions that really aren't that helpful right now because we're not far enough along yet. How many lights are we going to have? Are we going to have how many air conditioning units? There's a lot of questions that have still got to be worked out in the building process. So those kinds of questions aren't as helpful as maybe clarifying kinds of questions. And then we'll lay out for you tonight what we believe the cost is going to be, and a method by which we intend to pay that. And so we'll show the video right now.
More than 100 years ago, our church's story started with a group of godly men and women from Oakdale Baptist Church, desiring to fulfill the call to make disciples. In 1906, these disciple makers formed an evangelistic Bible study in the growing area of Louisville that was void of any church work. Reflecting its proximity to 9th and O Streets, the church plant was named the 9th and O Baptist Mission, and the first building was constructed for $1,159.30. By 1916, after several years of healthy growth, 9th and O Baptist Mission became the 9th and O Baptist Church with 174 members.
9th and O has always had a vision for making disciples. Over the years, the people of 9th and O have adapted to meet the needs of a growing church and changes within our community. Whether through church planting or building initiatives, each of these periods in our church's history was embraced by faithful members following God's leading.
In 1997, after almost 90 years in South Louisville, 9th and O decided to move to our current location on Breckenridge Lane. The Lord blessed the church with many decades of fruitful ministry, but the congregation felt God was guiding our church in a new direction and location.
Where our church now resides was once an 18-acre strawberry farm. But strawberry fields were not to be forever. Today, we see the Lord's goodness each Sunday as a thriving community of disciples gathers on this campus, reaching every stage of life, from babies to senior adults and every age in between.
Just as our early founders had a vision for discipleship, our desire as a building team has been to look for ways to expand our discipleship efforts and lean into our core values of truth, worship, community, and missions.
One of our priorities was to determine how to expand the number of adult Bible fellowship groups we offer to accommodate new members better and to care for one another. With a new addition, we will have space to create 8 additional adult BFGs. The new BFG hallway will provide classrooms that are a great size for both Sunday mornings and Wednesday nights.
With more adults, we know that means more kids and students. And for the first time since moving to Breckenridge Lane, our students will have a space all their own. This dedicated space will allow us to minister to our youth better and give NAOBC kids the entire second floor of the children's building.
Discipleship happens anytime believers gather to study His Word. Sometimes it involves food. Our men's ministry loves their Saturday morning breakfasts, and BFGs regularly enjoy meals together in our building. We believe a new kitchen will enable us to do what we do best: eat. Our church is known for our desire to fellowship. Building community nights is just one of the ways that we do that. But currently, our ability to fellowship as larger groups is limited. And when it's too cold or rainy to move outside, our building quickly feels cramped and restrictive. The proposed building will have a multi-purpose gathering space, perfect for hosting BFG luncheons, BCNs, kid recreation, and playing basketball.
Over the last several months, we have heard from church members about their hope that 9th and O might look more like a church. The proposed new front lobby will allow us to add a cross and fresh signage to the outside, improving the flow of people from the worship center to the BFG hallway and to the new multi-purpose gathering space.
We hope you're excited by what the Lord is doing here at 9th and O Baptist Church. Psalm 127:1 states, "Unless the Lord builds the house, those who build it labor in vain." We know that this project will only be accomplished by the grace of God. Pray for wisdom, discernment, and that we would be faithful stewards honoring the Lord as we seek to share the good news in Louisville and make more room for more disciples.
More room for more disciples. The call to make and be a disciple is clear throughout the New Testament, and we can remember some of the final words that Jesus spoke to his disciples to go and make disciples as he left this earth. The goal of this team, as we try to distill, or one of the goals of this team, as we try to distill into a short phrase, what is our story? Why are we going about this? And it is about making disciples. 9th and O Baptist Church makes disciples. And it's clear in the way we go about our ministry strategy. As we thought about this, there were, if you think back to April, there were 4 key points that Dr. Cook made. We need more BFG rooms. We need a larger fellowship space. We need a kitchen, and we all know why we need the kitchen, and which was highlighted in the video. And we need more parking. The plan that you will see and that you saw represented in the video answers those 4 questions. We make disciples through Bible teaching and through small group fellowship. We've got the BFG rooms and discipleship rooms that will accomplish that. We also make disciples by being in community together. We've got a large lobby, and you saw the large multi-purpose gathering space that will help facilitate community. Those are, as we look at the kind of the big components of this building, that's how we will go about making disciples. That's how we'll continue the mission and the ministry strategy of 9th and O Baptist Church. There are a few things that we want to make that I'd like to set the stage for as some of my fellow team members come up. We've got some more slides, I believe, that'll show us a footprint of the proposed building space. I've got a laser pointer here. I'm afraid of, they say you can put somebody's eye out with one of these. I'm not really sure, but you can, the new space you can see is this L that encompasses behind the preschool space, and then the new lobby at the entrance of where we're accustomed to coming into the preschool space. That's the new construction. The additional construction as a part of this scope, you'll see this red area right here. That's in the existing preschool room, but that's where we will add additional restrooms. We will have someone speak to restrooms. That is a key of key interest, I know. We considered hiring a consultant from Buc-ee's just to make sure we got it right. But Jeff pointed out that we'd probably have to increase our staffing by 6 or 8 people in order to make that function as it should. Those are the key areas of new construction. Coming up to speak to you now about some of the specifics in the area will be Rose Booth. Rose will be followed by Aaron Murphy, Aaron Murphy by Aaron Austin, and then Mike Smith to talk about different particular areas of the project.
Well, we hope you all enjoyed the video that gave you a concept of what this proposal includes. If you saw during the flyover of the conceptual outside where the cross was, that is going to be what it's going to be our new entrance main entrance and our new enlarged lobby. So currently right now we have our main lobby on this side of the building to my right, and we have a preschool lobby to my left in the children's wing. At a church of our size, 70% of our people go through the preschool lobby, which if you go through the preschool lobby, you know how congested that can be. And 30% of our congregation comes through our main lobby. We call that our main lobby because when we first moved here in 1998, that was the only lobby we had. But we've since far have outgrown that. Where you see the lobby entrance on the picture above, that's going to be facing Breckenridge Lane. And the preschool lobby will be replaced by this lobby. Our current main lobby will still remain, but this lobby will be where most people will enter as we will be adding more parking spaces, approximately 100 more spaces. As you go in that lobby, you will have the ability to go towards our preschool area, the secured entrance into that area if you have preschool or children. You'll be able to go through a hallway to come into the sanctuary here, the worship center. Or you can also go through that direction to get to the multipurpose gathering space, which is what we're calling our large gym/event space. So it gives a lot more room in the lobby for people to congregate as a church. We love to fellowship after and in between services, and this will allow us to be less cramped. We talked about the multipurpose gathering space, which is the next thing I want to speak to. As Dr. Cook mentioned, there are many of our BFGs that when you calculate the adults and the children in that BFG, we hit up to 100 in number. And there's no home, no restaurant. There's very few places where they can go to have a full BFG fellowship unless the weather's nice and they can do it outside in someone's home or park. The multipurpose gathering space will give these BFGs an opportunity to have a full fellowship here on property. It'll also be used for men's events and women's events in lieu of having to set up here in the worship center as we typically have to do. As you can see from some of the pictures from the multipurpose gathering space, to give you an idea of the size, it is the size of a high school regulation basketball court. We also, as Dr. Cook mentioned, our children and our youth are always looking for a place to play, to do recreation. And if you're like me, you know, we see them after services on Wednesday night. We see them after services on Sunday night. And, you know, they're playing in a parking lot, which isn't really the safest. I'm not a parent, but I wouldn't want my child running through the parking lot when it's dark. And so this will give them an opportunity to be able to have a place to shoot hoops, to play, to do the things they want to do after services and when the weather's bad. It also is going to be great for VBS. If any of you all have ever served in VBS, you know when the weather is too hot or it's raining, This last VBS, I think Ron can confirm, we had to use a room to do recreation in that we had to revamp because the weather was bad. We won't have that problem anymore. We'll be able to use that multi-purpose gathering space for those things. Attached to that space will be an improved and updated kitchen. When we moved here in 1998, we left a building that had a very large commercial-sized kitchen that could serve hundreds of people. And we came here, and to be quite honest, this kitchen has never really served the purpose we have needed it for the time we've been here. And now we're going to have a kitchen that is going to be larger. It will have areas for prep space. And it'll be something that will be functional and usable for multiple things, not to mention just the events that I discussed earlier. If you noticed in the video, the men were getting their breakfast down a hallway upstairs. But it'll also have warmers and other amenities for those BFG breakfasts, those BFG potlucks. And if you've ever brought a dish to one of those and had tried to figure out how am I going to warm my dish, how am I going to get the food ready, you won't have to worry about that, and it'll be right off of the multi-purpose gathering space. So we really have prayed through that area because we feel like the Lord could use it for a lot of things, as Dr. Cook mentioned, community for sure. The last thing I want to talk about is probably the thing that we talked about at every single meeting that we had, and that is restrooms. Now, men, you may not really care much about this topic because it's really more of a women's topic, apparently. But if you want to make your wife happy, you're going to be applauding at this next statement. We have increased our restroom capacity. We have 7 more additional restrooms. And according to Jeff, that by code, we have enough women's restrooms for 1,000 women. We knew that would get an applause. Along with those restrooms, we're also going to be having some dedicated family bathrooms. Now, if you're familiar with family restrooms, if you go to the airport or sometimes retail facilities, they're really a single stall restroom. And we're doing this for 3 reasons. Number one, if you've not noticed, a lot of our families have a lot of small children. And if a mom, for example, has 3 children under the age of 6, and she's got to take them to the restroom, it makes it very difficult right now for her to take them into a regular women's restroom, because she either has to stuff them all in that very small stall, or she has to take the handicap stall, which then leaves that one occupied. A family restroom will give our mothers and fathers the opportunity to take their children to the restroom and have the space and the privacy that they need. And we have strategically placed some near our preschool children wing for that reason. Secondly, for special needs children, there's often times where you have a special needs child who is older and they need their parents to be with them and give them assistance in the restroom. And it could be that it's a father with a daughter that's special needs that needs to take her, or a mother with a son. And safely, that shouldn't be happening within our general public restrooms. So these family restrooms will be something that our parents of special needs children can also leverage. And then finally, for people like me and others with other mobility issues and using assistive devices, a typical regular general restroom stall is just not sufficient. And so those family restrooms could also be used for that. So I hope that explains how much we did take the feedback from you all and became very serious about it and the needs and the priorities that we had. So I will pass it to Aaron Murphy.
Good afternoon. My name is Aaron Murphy. My wife Katie and I used to be members of a wonderful church with wonderful preaching, but they didn't have any children's programming. So in 2019, we brought our children to VBS at 9th and O Baptist Church. And we looked at each other and said, wow, it's a wonderful church with wonderful preaching and a wonderful children's program. And we've been here ever since. One thing I was thinking about is that I believe children are the largest unreached people group on earth. And to prove this to you, I will suggest that there's only been one child in the history of all mankind that has ever been born in a right relationship with God. And so all the rest are fair game. The children's ministry at Ninth and O is very special. And Ryan Morris has done a great job creating an exemplar program where children learn to love Jesus, and we are seeing baptisms of children regularly. This morning, and just a month or two ago, my own son was baptized here, and this is something that we want to perpetuate, but it's something that we are bursting at the seams right now for. One of the things we talked about every single meeting, as well as all the other things, is the children's ministry. And the children's ministry was a big driver of this project because we have run out of space to adequately minister to the amount of children and youth that are coming to this church. So this project will allow us to fulfill the needs going forward for 3 individual groups. One, the small children, babies in nursery, the middle-aged children who are pre-youth, and then the youth group. Can we look at the church design? Yep, thank you. So one of the things that we've got going on right now is there's a lot of intermingling of, I'm pointing at myself here. Yeah, intermingling of the classrooms and the space, both on the first and the second floor. So this new design is going to allow us to actually have a children's space right here for the younger children that is dedicated and partitioned. So right now, you'll notice that everybody comes into the church, walks around this circle, and there's a lot of traffic right here, which from a standpoint of getting young children into and out of classes, plus possible security concerns, is less than ideal. This new design will allow us to partition this with a wall right here with doors that will not come in this way. And everybody who drops their children off will have a single point to drop them off and to pick them up. What's unique about this as well, opposed to what we've got right now, is that this will no longer be a lobby that every single person in the church comes through. This will. And so only people who have children to drop off and to pick up will be using this right here. And so this area will become much less congested. If you look at this and you think to yourself, hey, that's not exactly how it looks now, you're right, it's not exactly how it looks now. There are a couple remodeling things that have been drawn in here. These are not part of this project that we are asking the church to approve. They are things that can all be done in a house. So things that can be done under our current budget without any additional strain to the church's regular operations, and they won't take away from the money that's going towards the other things right here, but they will improve the ability of the church to minister to the youngest children. On the second floor, right above here, we're going to have space that is more classroom space, and some of this is not finished in, but more classroom space for children who are in elementary school. At every single meeting, every time I got the chance, and the other members on this team got the chance, we asked Ryan. We said, Ryan, will this work? Ryan, is this going to be good? And so we wanted to make sure that our constituent group of the children's ministry was well taken care of here. One thing that's unique about Ninth and O is it is a multi-generational church. And a lot of people say a church is multi-generational when it has people of all ages. But Ninth and O doesn't just have people of all ages. We have generations that have grown up here, died here, and left another generation of their own children faithfully serving God. And so it is important that we continue to have a strong, robust child's ministry. I make no qualms about it. That's the reason I'm here, is because I believe that my children are taught the Word of God better than anywhere else I've been able to find. And so that's something that's very important to me, but I also know it's very important to the church because the church puts a lot of resources into it. So this project is going to allow us to continue to minister to children, but in a safer and better way, because we're now going to be able to have 3 separate areas for young children, elementary school, and youth that are separated areas. This one is also going to have access controls as well. And by that, I just mean there's going to be single points where you can get in and out. And so you'll know who's there, who's supposed to be there, and who's not. You'll also have separation of people when they're moving from different classroom to classroom, going to the restroom. And so you won't have children of all ages just walking all over each other. That was a big benefit that we wanted to provide for the children's ministry. So those things all made this a great design, and at every stage we've asked Ryan, hey, is this what you need? Tell us what else you need. And every stage he's been very nice and said, yes, this is what we need. Let's go back to the first slide. So the flow, one thing that's always bugged me about Ninth and O, and really the only thing that's ever bugged me about Ninth and O, is the fact that this loop that we have now does not make a full loop, and that you have to go through the sanctuary in order to make a full circle. We have finally solved that problem. There is some more to be said about the lobby here, and I think some other people will address some of those things, but I am really happy that we get this outer perimeter right there, all right? It's going to be something that's secure and that makes sense. It also is going to be something that we can use as a replacement for mall walking. Currently, and just because I know that somebody's going to ask about this, if you drop your kids off now, you come right into the church here, okay? Because we're putting this lobby on, this is no longer going to be a way to come into and out of the sanctuary, all right? So this will be just a dedicated drop-off and pick-up for children area, and then all the traffic will be funneled right here, and you can walk around to your BFGs, come through here, and continue making the loop, all right? All right. Thanks a lot.
Good afternoon, Ninth and O. Well, I just wanted to kind of piggyback on what Aaron was talking about. We came here in 2016. We left Oklahoma January 1st of that year. And at the time, we had kids from the ages of 4 to 10. Well, 8 years has gone by very quickly, and now our kids are ages 12 to 18. And so we have gone from having kids both in preschool and children's, and now they are all in youth. And so I was very passionate about what was going to happen for the youth. And so if we can look at the drawing again, one thing that you will notice, and this is probably the thing I am most excited about. There we go. Okay. So if you see right here, youth, those are dedicated youth bathrooms. That is a guy's bathroom and a girl's bathroom, and you do not have to share with the kids anymore on the kids' hallway. This is very, very important from not only a youth standpoint, so they're not having to worry about it, but from a parent standpoint, from a security standpoint. This will just make our Sunday mornings and our Wednesday nights that much better, that much more secure. The other thing that will really help is because this room is contained, you guys won't have to just I'm going to say fraternize, socialize in this hallway right here. You can go into the youth room. And so you're not having to just hang out outside of the 5th grade BFG talking for 20 minutes. So we think this is going to be a fantastic space dedicated for youth and really give our kids something to look forward to. Because as it is right now, the kids are kind of like, well, I get through 5th grade and I guess I go across the hallway. Well, now they're going to have a new space in the new building, and it'll be something to look forward to because, again, we want to encourage discipleship all the way from babies all the way through senior adults and at every stage in between. And so this will give us an opportunity to do that much better job with our youth. The other thing I wanted to speak to, and if you don't mind going back to one of the outdoor shots, is we have a lot of great outdoor space. We've got 18 acres, beautiful property, absolutely beautiful. But when you walk out the door of 9th and O, you immediately hit pavement. You hit parking lot. And so what ends up happening is a lot of sports and pickup games of football kind of end up happening in a parking lot. And so what we're really hoping with this new space, you might see there's some green right here. We are hoping that we will have a little bit more of some green space so that as you're coming out of the church building, there will be green space for people to continue socializing right outside the church without having to be standing in just a thoroughfare. And so that's something that we're really hoping is to add some nice landscaping and to really improve that outer, that frontage, so that not only do we have a cross and some fresh signage on the church, but we will also have some additional trees, shrubs, and just some nice outdoor places that we can gather. So, okay. Mike?
Thanks, Aaron. Now we get to talk about, I don't know how it felt to me to talk about some of the fun stuff as far as the financing and things go. But I wanted to start and say just a word of recognition and a word of thanks to our pastoral staff. Some of them are up here, some of them are out in the congregation, several of them are on the committee. They've done a tremendous amount of work in evaluating our needs and expressing our needs going forward as we grow. And there's been a lot of legwork that's been done on their behalf, and very appreciative of that as they help the committee understand the vision that we're trying to put forward. And that the vision part goes to our pastor and executive pastor as they've tried to help us coordinate and coalesce our thoughts around everything that's been presented here today. A couple of the guiding principles as we get into talking about the cost of the project. You heard our pastor allude to them this morning. The fact that one of our goals in this, we've given in the neighborhood of $250,000 over the last several years that's gone to missions. And we're looking in terms of not impacting that giving at all. We want to do this outside of that. That giving, that $250,000 comes through our Great Commission offering. It comes through our cooperative program giving and other mission projects that we have within our budget. So that's one of the guiding principles that we've worked with. Another guiding principle is that we don't want to adversely impact our operating budget. We currently have a loan payment in our budget, and we don't want to develop, just like you would in your own home budget, you don't want a mortgage payment that precludes you from doing other things. And with the church, we don't want to have a debt service that impacts our ability to do mission work or to do ministry in all these various areas, whether it's preschool, children, or adults. So those are a couple of the guiding thoughts that we focused on. The project, as outlined, and you've seen the drawings and looked at that, we've had cost estimates at $5.6 million for the new construction. That's new construction and equipment and furnishings. It does not include the paying off our existing debt, which is approximately $675,000 currently, and should be paid down further, closer to $600,000 as we move through the rest of 2024. The other thing that it didn't include was the parking. So when we add the existing debt and the additional parking, that's going to put us at approximately $6.5 million. Now, going back to what I said about being able to maintain our budget and be able to operate, we'd still have budget increases. Anytime you add additional space, like we're talking about, you're going to have increases. You still got to heat it and cool it, clean it, all those things, so that would have an impact on our budget. But there's other things that would maybe positively affect it when we look at whether we have to borrow money or not. The more money that we can give on the front end, the better off we'd be, obviously, because it reduces the amount that we would need to borrow. We look at that at today's current rates. We've talked in terms of what would our budget payment be, what would be the maximum that what we would want in there. Of course, we're trusting the Lord in all of this. The Lord could provide every bit of it. When we talk about $6.5 million, that's certainly, He owns the cattle on 1,000 hills, He can provide it all. But from a planning standpoint, we're going with what we know. If we're going to have a loan payment, then that would be approximately $3 million would be, the debt service on that would be about the maximum that we would want to keep from, like I said, getting into those principles that we talked about of impacting our missions giving or impacting our operating budget. $3 million would leave a capital program that where we would need to raise $3.5 million. And that's I think that's on the last page you see one of the recommendations is that we enter into a 3-year giving campaign. That we currently have talked with Kentucky Baptist Convention, which provides support in this area, and are looking at starting our capital program, starting that right away. $3.5 million sounds like a lot, and the Lord can provide. That $3.5 million, you might ask how that breaks down. If you give it over a 3-year period, as much of it that comes in on the front end, typically in these programs there are some first fruit gifts that come in at the beginning. Those would help offset any needs that we would have to borrow immediately. But the more we have, obviously the less we have to borrow and pay interest on right up front. Let's see. A couple of things that could impact it going forward, both from where rates are currently, they could go down, which would be to our benefit as we move forward over the next months, and as we grow. Obviously, if we grow in numbers, correspondingly, we've seen in the past that giving would also increase, and those would help in that regard. I'll step back here and ask Jeff to help me. What have I overlooked or left out in that regard?
No, I'll just piggyback on that by saying that as I reflected back to our building 20 plus years ago, when we built the current children's building and we refinanced our existing debt, our debt payment in 2004 was around $2.7 million. At that time, our budget was just a little bit over $1 million. And so our debt was $2.7 million. Our monthly payment was $18,666 at that time. And so that's 20 years ago. And so you look at it today and you say, well, we're pretty committed to not having a monthly debt payment of over $20,000. That's barely more than what we were paying in 2004. And the reason, just quite frankly, is that we weren't giving as much to missions in 2004 as we are today. That was a large component, and so we could afford a larger ratio of debt for our congregation. And so, if you looked at that $2.7 million back in 2004, that would be the equivalent of $4.355 million today. And so our hope and goal is that we would raise enough money so that our debt payment would actually be less than it was back in 2004, and when you consider inflation. And so it is a God-sized goal, but we believe that this is where the Lord has led us. We believe that He is faithful, and so we are committed to not going into the excessive debt that, as Mike would say, would cripple our ministries or hinder our missions giving. And by God's grace, we believe that we can do all of those things.
One other point that I would make, a question came up the other night with the deacons when we were talking about this, and the question was, how does it break down, per family, or how can we get a better grasp on that number? If you're talking about raising $3.5 million, we currently, records indicate that we have approximately, I believe, 450 units, family units, in our church, that, as far as regular attenders, and that could be a family unit, could be a youth, or it could be a single, or college student. It could also be a unit could be a family of 6. So when you break that down, you look at $3.5 million over 3 years. That breaks down to about $7,800 per unit. Obviously, there are units that, if you're talking college age or whatever, it may be a hard thing for them to do. They're trying to get through school. But then there may be others that are impacted, not able to give in that way, but then there should be probably our families units on the other end of the scale that could do substantially more than that. So it's not that we're doing equal amounts, it's an equal sacrifice when it comes to giving.
Yeah, exactly. When you divide down the 3.5 million by 450 giving units, it actually comes down to $7,777.77. Now, I'm not into numerology, but that seems like a number of completion to me, so that's what we're going with.
I'm sorry, I rounded
For 3
up.
years, and that's over a 3-year period in addition to our regular budget giving. And like Mike said, we're hesitant to share that number because there are some in the room who are thinking, oh, I think I could do that. Our family could do that over a 3-year period. It would be a stretch for us, but we could do it. But there are others that will think, there's no way in the world. I'm a poor college student. When you say a poor college student, that's a redundancy. And so you might think, there's no way I could do that. We understand that. Our other hesitancy is that I don't want everyone to think, oh, that's all we have to give. We're good. Because the reality is, for those who can't give that much, we need others who can give much, much more. And we will ask you to do that for the glory of God. I had a pastor tell me one time, I would be very hesitant to ask people to give to me personally, but I'm never hesitant to ask people to give to God's kingdom and for God's work. And so that's sort of our philosophy.
One of the things we want to be sure and leave with tonight is answered questions. We want to know your questions and hopefully answer your questions so that as you have opportunity to pray for this, pray about this over the course of the next week, you've got answers and you understand. So we'll take your questions. There's a couple of things I do want to point out so as not to disappoint you. We don't know what color the walls are going to be. We don't know what kind of tile we'll have on the floor, although Dr. Cook has volunteered to lead the interior design components of the project. So we're in good hands. The design that you've seen in the images on the screen, it's a conceptual design. We've partnered with 3 different firms. First off, there's the Kaiser Group, is the architectural firm. They're out of near Columbus, Ohio. We solicited responses from several architects, some local, some outside of Louisville, and the Kaiser Group has extensive experience working with churches. Ryan happens to know the owner and founder, Dan Kaiser, well. He is a believer, and that has been a good partnership to this part. What we have partnered with him to this point is just enough to produce the materials that you've seen today. We don't have a contract to build a building, anything like that. We're not presuming. We're very hopeful, expectant that we will move forward, but that's what we've done so far. We've also contracted with a local civil engineering firm, Land Design and Development, to do the preliminary work we need to understand what site limitations we may or may not have regarding the building, as well as the additional parking. And then the third is a general contractor. We interviewed several and solicited feedback from several general contractors. We have not contracted with one yet, but we are working with Lichtenfeld, who you may remember, those who were here, built the children's preschool addition. Again, we have not yet contracted with them for anything, but we did need a partner to help build pricing and estimates so that we had an idea of what the floor plan that we came up with and designed would cost. So that we, again, as Mike spoke to and Jeff, we know that it is financially achievable. So there are a lot of things we do know, but there's a lot of the details still that would be determined in future months as we get closer. So I believe we have some folks with some microphones for you all to voice your questions. If there are any. It's okay if you don't have questions, but that's all right.
Yeah, that multi-purpose room, will people be able to use it for exercise like adults? And then can it be sectioned off for classrooms?
Very good question. As designed, it is designed as a single large space. Now, it is large enough that we could use it for smaller groups, breaking off into different parts of the room. As regard to whether or not its use, I guess, outside of church hours, I'm going to defer to one of our staff members right here.
So Don, it's a good question, but that is a ministerial question that really falls outside of the purview of this team. So yes, could a person theoretically come up and exercise during office hours? I don't see why not. If you're wanting me to come after hours to let you in the building, that might be another issue. But yeah, we want our people to be able to use our facilities as much as we can. But that's not something that the team itself was tasked with thinking about.
And that's something I will mention. This team did not look at our ministry strategy. Our team looked at the ministry strategy the church has and said, okay, based on that ministry strategy, small group Bible study, large group community building, Sundays, weekdays, and other special events, what space do we need? So the building design that you see reflects the needs of the ministry strategy in place. So, good question. Okay, good question. Again, will we hire an athletic director? Yeah. Dr. Cook has begged for no. Now, again, it's designed to support the existing ministry strategy. So those things that are in place right now is what it's designed to support.
Considering hypothetically here, if God continues to bless Not to Know the way He has, if you take the rate of growth over like the past 5 years for our church, if it continues at that rate, how long would we have until we run out of space in the addition?
Very good question. How long do we have till we run out of space? We based, and Dr. Cook spoke to this morning, we based the size and the number of rooms that you see represented in the new building plan. We based that on if we filled the worship center, if we filled this room, how much additional space would we need for BFG, discipleship groups, church-wide fellowships? So I can't answer, maybe someone else here can answer that based on our current rate of growth, but if we exceed the capacity of the new building space, we'll have other building needs to address as well because this space would be too small for us. All right.
Yeah, thanks for the presentation today and really appreciate the work you all have done and look forward to seeing this in the future. I was just going to ask, how can we share this information with others who may not have been able to attend this afternoon? They're being sick or on vacation or something. And will there be given more opportunity to reflect on the material here today?
Thank you, Roger. We are recording this right now. Thank you to Pastor Craig and his crew. And so we'll get that out via email and text to the link to the church family. Thank you, Roger.
My question was, if it does happen, I know that we use that space out there for like kids events. How will the building project affect current church activities? Will it be like completely blocked off, or will it be part of the church that will be inaccessible for the amount of time that it would take to build?
That's a good question. I would expect that existing space, there's always some disruption during construction. We don't have enough details now about what that timeline would look like. Based on the floor plan, I think it would have minimal impact on current church activities and the calendar, the schedule. So, good question.
Hi, I want to thank you all for all this work. First of all, my question is, Currently, I know the staff has to share office space with BFG classes, and there's shifting that goes around. Does this plan allow for the staff to have dedicated office space and the activities of the church have their own space?
Very good question. And Gabe's going to come and help me with this. The short answer is no. We had several iterations. We started, not surprisingly, with a larger building, a larger footprint than we ended up with. And office space was one of the conversations that we had several times. But I'll let Gabriel speak to how we landed where we did. So.
Thank you, Greg, and appreciate your heartbeat. That's been the heartbeat of this building team, trying to get the staff offices. Like, if you may remember, in 2016, trying to do everything we can to prolong this conversation we're having today. Like, what can we do to make more space for more disciples? The staff, like, okay, let's refit this office space, make BFG space, discipleship group space. And as we've been doing everything we can, just the heartbeat for these guys is to give us offices, but the heartbeat of your staff is to say, hey, how can we best serve our church? And right now, it's like, let's keep going what we're doing. So the Lord may open the door for offices later, but right now, we want to serve you by just letting the space be what it is.
But the staff was looking at, as we looked at what our priorities are, the staff said, well, our office need is less of a priority. We need BFG space. We need the multi-purpose gathering space. We need these other things. And they said, if this needs to take a back seat for now, that's fine. And then the other side of that, if the Lord provides us more than $6.5 million, if he provides us $8 million or whatever, then we can add those things back in. We can enlarge the scope of the concept that we've shown you today.
We know where we can put offices, let us put it that way, in some of the earlier designs. And so we'd love to be able to do that. But thank you, Gabe.
Thank you all for this presentation. Great to see this. I just want a point of clarification. The finances that have been proposed here, dollars, units, and all that, that was for the new construction. And I think there was a part of the presentation inside, I guess what would say the current boundary. Obviously, there's some new walls being put up downstairs on the first floor and the second. I think there was a comment made that inside the boundary was going to be handled within our own kind of regular annual budget, and that will not be included in the new. Is that true? I'm seeing a yes?
Yes, with a small exception. If we can bring up the first floor plan. In the bottom right corner, you'll see a red square. That is existing space. Those are new restrooms. So those are included within the scope. But the larger reset, if you will, of the preschool and the children's floors are not. So,
thank you.
Yeah.
So what kind of timeline are we looking for? Let's say like we have a really strong fundraising. When are we building? When's it done? I know you can't probably say that because construction's tricky, but let's start with a when are we building?
Well, we're looking at this summer. No, not really. But no, we are several months out. Who could speak to the fundraising?
Well, I could talk about the building timeline.
Oh, okay. Yep. Aaron's going to talk about the building timeline, and then
all right, so your question presupposes fundraising went great. And the Lord is good. So I've talked to Lichtenfeld about this, and one of the reasons we like them is that they have the most aggressive construction schedule that you will find anywhere. And some of that's because they're a 100-year-old company. Some of it's because they do a lot of stuff like this. They gave us several examples of projects just like this. One was Portland Christian School, New Edition, and there's a church they did, I think it's down in Simpsonville. Very similar type construction. They say that that they only had one building ever go over 10 months, all right, which is phenomenal light speed construction. And one of the reasons is, I mean, they'll put the roof up before they pour the slab sometimes, if the weather's bad, all right? So they are the least weather dependent of all the contractors we talked to. So, and I pressed him on this. I said, 10 months, he said, when we start, it's 10 months. He said they've only had one building, this is the biggest building they ever did, and it was more than 10 months. So let's see if he's lying. I don't know. So,
in relation to the starting date, in order to do this, we're going to need a construction loan in interim. If we talk about a 3-year giving program, hopefully we have a substantial portion of that comes in up front. But if you're talking about giving over a 3-year period, and yet a building is going to be done in 10 months, then we're going to need a construction loan to bridge that gap. Almost all of the banks that we've talked to our existing loan holder. We've talked to at least 4 others, and all of them require a significant investment of 25%, and I believe that's the correct number, Jeff, 25% of money into it. And if you talk about $6.5 million, that's over $1.5 million that we need up front to show the loaning institutions, hey, we're invested in this project, and then moving from there. So yes, we need the giving. And to answer your question, is that we're going to have that money up front in order to initiate the process and get the contractor going.
Thank you. Good. Oh, do we have one? Oh, in the back over here? Good.
Maybe I missed it, but did you say when this fundraising would start?
That is it. Yeah. We'll have folks positioned at the exits. No, would you like to speak to that, Jeff?
Sure. So we never want to be presumptuous when it comes to a congregation, right? This is a church, a congregational church, and so the congregation has the final say on matters such as this. So we never want to assume. But at the same time, we have to do some homework to be able to adequately address your questions. And so we've met with representatives of the Kentucky Baptist Convention. They have a division that works with churches for 3-year pledge campaigns. Tentatively, if the church approves this next Sunday, we would go straight into a building campaign that would lead up until early May. And early May, we would hopefully conclude that campaign. That's when we would receive pledges over a 3-year commitment. That's when hopefully that we would gain a large sum of money on the front end, and then we can more adequately see a time frame moving forward. But assuming the congregation approves, then we would go into fundraising almost immediately.
Jeff, could you share with them their experience that a church usually raises 1.5 to 2 times?
Yeah, most churches that they work with raise between 1 and 2 times their annual budget over the course of a 3-year time period, in addition to their regular budget. So what we're hoping to raise is on the upper edge. But I will say this, we're also on the upper edge when it comes to giving in general. So for example, across the Kentucky Baptist Convention of 3,000 plus Baptist churches, the average giving per capita in our churches on a weekly basis is a little over $31. That's including children and children and youth and preschoolers, however many people are in attendance. If you take their total giving, it comes out to about $31 per capita per week. At our church, our per capita giving, even with the number of children and students that we have, is not $31 per capita, it's $47 per capita. And so we're very thankful for that, and so we've set our goal on the high end. We want to raise as much on the front end as we can because we'd love to raise all of it on the front end, absolutely. Then all the other issues become moot points.
And we have a lot of children, they're notoriously cheap, let me tell you. I don't check many people's giving records, but the children are not giving. And so it goes up for us.
Does the church plan on selling bonds?
Good question. We do not. Yeah.
We will have representatives from the KBC, for example, who specialize in helping people understand how they can give generously and sacrificially to the church in ways outside of, for example, their savings account. There may be many people who don't keep large sums of money in savings or checking accounts, and we sometimes assume that's the only way we can give. But for many people, there are many other ways that they can give from their assets. And so we will have training and teach people how they can give outside of just the normal means that people think about when they think of giving to a building campaign, but there are no plans for issuing bonds.
Jeff mentioned that Ninth and O Baptist Church is unusual in its giving. The reason we have this problem, if you will, or this challenge is because we are unusual. I think Dr. Cook mentioned this morning, about 95% of those who attend worship are in Bible study on Sunday mornings. Most churches don't have that problem. But I'm thankful that we do, because that means we are discipling folks, from the youngest who don't give, all the way up. So anyway.
I'd just like to make a comment following on what you were saying, Andy, and that is this congregation is unusual and this team is unusual. You have answered many questions before they were asked. You've done your due diligence. You've made sure, from my perspective, that it's the building that we need at this time. And you've addressed how are we going to get there, when we're going to get started. Thank you. Thank you for doing that. As a team, you guys, you look like you're doing, are working together very well. And I have no questions, which is amazing. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, we've got one over here in the back.
Yeah, just because I didn't understand super well. So you said $3.5 million, $3 million, and then $6.5 million. So 3.5 is what we want to fundraise. The other $3 million, is that just getting folded into the normal budget, or what was happening to that $3 million?
That would be a loan. We haven't finalized details of that loan, but we would borrow that. Right. Yes. Or we can raise anything over $3.5 million would be gladly accepted as well. Just to be clear, we don't have to borrow it. So good. Anything else? Oh. It could be. I think at that point we would talk to the church. I think we'd have the option to expand the scope of the project. Maybe we get some offices, more bathrooms. It's an option. So, all right. Okay. I won't drag it out, but thank you all. These have been great questions.
Andy, I don't want to interrupt you, sir, but we might ask Jeff if he would read the recommendation that will be brought to them to be voted on next week. It's in the pamphlet, in the material, it's in the back, and this is what will be brought next Sunday morning in each service in what will be a called business session.
So we'll be voting on these 4 recommendations: that the church proceed with the construction of additional space and renovation of existing space as presented in the conceptual design on February the 4th, 2024. Major project components include new construction and renovation, parking, and retirement of existing debt. That the church authorize the budget and finance team and trustees to negotiate and obtain the necessary debt funding to complete the project and then administer and authorize payment of project expenses. And finally, that the church initiate a 3-year giving program to raise funds for this project.
Very good. Any other questions then? Very good. I do want to say thanks to, and it may seem self-serving, but it has been, and our work is not yet done, continues to be an honor to work with the members on this team, and I'm so thankful to be a part of that here at Ninth and O Baptist Church. So, anything else, Pastor? Shall we? Yep, I will pray. For your goodness to Ninth and O Baptist Church, God, we are so grateful. God, keep us faithful in making disciples. Keep us faithful in telling the good news that we do have a Savior. We do have an answer to what is broken in us, and God instill in us a desire, such a desire that we cannot help but tell others. Thank you, God, for those who had a vision more than 100 years ago and started what became Ninth and O Baptist Church. God, help us to continue to glorify you in all that we do here. In Jesus' name, amen.